Radhastami Shri Gurave Namaha. Sva Dantikam Radhakamala Shri Guru Vaishnava Sajiva Shri Krishna Chaitanya Deva Radhan Shri Vishakhan Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Kanta Namoste.
Devyad Brindaranya Kalpajumada Shrimad Ratnagara Singasanasto Shrimad Radha Shilagovinda Devo Prasdalabi Sevimanu Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Mamsi Bhatatastitaha Karshan Venu Svanar Gopir Gopinatha Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasandubhya eva cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, to understand the position of the, as Prabhupada once described Her Majesty Srimati Radharani, the counterpart or the counter whole of Krishna. What? I want it louder because I don't like it so close to my mouth. It is actually the final summit goal of all endeavor. There's a very nice ascension in the nectar of instruction. If the nectar of instruction is over there, I'd like to see it, but from memory, then it's pretty loud. Above fruit of workers, we're simply caught in a labyrinth of work-reward syndrome, or the mental speculators or the jnanis. Yes. In the Shastra, it is said that of all types of fruit of workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life is favored by the Supreme Lord. Out of many such persons who are advanced in knowledge, jnanis, one who is practically liberated by virtue of his knowledge, may take to devotional service. What is that? Jnanamam prapadyante Vasudeva Savarmati Samahatma Sadurlabhaha. Such thoughtful persons coming to the conclusion that they must surrender to the Supreme Lord and render service to the Lord strictly for the Lord's pleasure. And by that knowledge and by application of that knowledge, one who is practically liberated by virtue of that knowledge takes the devotional service. He is superior to the others. However, one who has actually attained prema, pure love of Krishna, unalloyed devotional service, free from the desire for name, fame, profit, adoration, and distinction, free from the desire to acquire higher levels of knowledge and realization of the absolute truth, free from all personal considerations. One who has actually achieved that is superior to those jnanis who have reached the mature conclusion that they must surrender to the Lord. In other words, they've engaged in the process of devotional service and come to the ultimate conclusion. Amongst those who have achieved prema, the gopis are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy. So, Prabhupada, in the preface to the Krishna book, when people see a book like Krishna, which had the beautiful painting on the silver background with the greenish aura, halo around the heads of Radha and Krishna, who is the boy and who is that girl with Krishna? Mysteriously or interestingly enough, Prabhupada, of course, goes on to explain who that boy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but does not go on in that place to describe who is that girl with Krishna. In Srila Rupa Goswami's bhajan, that she is not, Prabhupada purporting, she is not ordinary girl, but she is worshipped by great sages and saintly persons like the four Kumaras, who in particular, refusing the order of their father, Lord Brahma, to engage in activities of procreation, understanding the value of celibacy, brahmachari, renounced life, not only refused, but had the potency to keep themselves physically just as 5-year-old boys. 5-year-old boys, 5-year-olds are not agitated by sexual desire. They are worshiping the supreme devotee, Srimati Radharani. On this day, 55 years ago, Srila Prabhupada performed the second initiation of devotees into Krishna consciousness. Those that I remember were Satsvarup Maharaj, Achyutananda, and Kirtanananda. Prabhupada gave a very short but profound sutra-like description of Srimati Radharani. She is the best devotee of Krishna because she loves Krishna the most. They are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy. Knowledge that there is a God and that God is the supreme controller, not that God allows evil, so therefore there can't be a God. You see how many people in this material world become confused by this. They can't understand. Prabhupada would explain it that evil is simply the absence of dependence and surrender to God. So we create the evil individually and collectively, just as one has the choice to stand in light or darkness. It's not the fault of the sun that one is in darkness. Among the gopis, as we will touch upon in the epic 4th chapter of the Adi Leela, where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes the internal reasons for Krishna's descent as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the glories of Srimati Radharani and her expansions, and the mood of devotional service, Madhurya Ras in particular, is delineated. She is the most dear to Krishna. In the beginning of the Nectar Devotion, the 6 characteristics of devotional service are explained. And under Attracting Krishna, Srila Rupa Goswami has stated that devotional service attracts even Krishna. Krishna attracts everyone, but devotional service attracts Krishna. So this is very nice to help us in our present stage of attempting to perform devotional service, how to understand Srimati Radharani, that our devotional service is under her guidance. It's described in the chapter 1 of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela that the spiritual master, the pure devotee of Krishna, authorized in disciplic succession, is understood to be the direct representative of either and or both. That's a more confidential topic. Srimati Radharani and Lord Nityananda Prabhu. The symbol of devotional service in the highest degree is Radharani. Krishna is called Madan Mohan, which means that he is so attractive that he can defeat the attraction of thousands of cupids. But Radharani is still more attractive, for she can even attract Krishna. Therefore, devotees call her Madan Mohan Mohini, the attractor of Cupid. In the chapter performing the Payobrata devotional service, which is one of the latter chapters of the 6th canto, is describing how to worship Lakshmi Narayan, Radha Krishna. Prabhupada writes in a purport which ultimately concludes by establishing that the greatest opulence of the Supreme Personality of God, who is Sad Aishwarya Purna, completely full in strength, knowledge, renunciation, fame, beauty, wealth, is even greater than all of that, is that even though he is Atmaram, Svarat, completely independent in fulfilling his own desires, he still depends on his devotee to accomplish some task. He's relying on the devotee. Sometimes his deity is lost or abandoned, and as in the case of the deity of Nataji at Govardhan Hill. You want to jump up and get another chair? Somebody keeps putting them away in the back. Well, it's Tansarupa. The Chaitanya is getting for you, Pancharatna. And he asks his devotee to rescue him, as he did Madhavendra Puri. Sometimes his temple is old and in disrepair, and he asks his devotee to fix it. And Prabhupada reveals or alludes to how Krishna is relying on he himself to do this supreme superlative task. Sometimes the Lord asks his devotee to preach his name and fame all over the world. Although the Lord, why does the Lord have to take, in Madhavendra Puri's devotional service to the Nataji deity at Govardhan Hill, manifested very quickly, and Prabhupada relates that to how the Krishna consciousness movement at the time of his writing that had spread all over the world in 5 years. Why does Krishna have to take 5 years? In 5 minutes, he could spread his name like wildfire. So one who has perceived how the Lord, how he's completely independent, still relies on his devotee to do some work on his behalf, has actually perceived the highest opulence and the greatness of the master and servant relationship. To perform devotional service means to follow in the footsteps of Radharani, and devotees in Vrindavan put themselves under the care of Radharani in order to achieve perfection in their devotional service. In other words, devotional service is not an activity of the material world, it is directly under the control of Radharani. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that Mahatmas or great souls are under the protection of Daivi Prakriti, the internal energy, Radharani. So being directly under the control of the internal potency of Krishna, devotional service attracts even Krishna himself. Also, Srila Prabhupada on this day 55 years ago, along with giving that profound instruction that she is the greatest devotee of Krishna because she loves Krishna the most, he also said, introducing Vaishnav holidays and fasting for the first time, Krishna is very strict and hard, so he makes us fast till midnight. But Radharani is very soft and kind, and therefore we only have to fast till noon.
Jai Radhe!
Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he is describing the various spiritual potencies of the Lord. If you listen to Prabhupada lecturing on this day in John Lennon's Tittenhurst, what did they call that place? The recital hall, or they had like a separate building that they had for music concerts, and that was the temple room. It's where devotees like Dhananjaya, in particular, Tribhuvanath, were initiated. So Prabhupada lectured on Radhastami on that day, and he began his lecture. You can listen to it. You look at the Prabhupada folio, audio, festivals, 9/1869. He's describing that Krishna, he has absolutely nothing to do himself, but he has so many agents and energies to do his bidding on his behalf. So we'll just come right away because we have very limited time. This is verse 68 of the 4th chapter. I'm beginning. The essence of the Ladini, pleasure-giving potency, is love of God. The essence of love of God is emotion, bhava. And the ultimate development of emotion is mahabhava. So Prabhupada has, and all the acharyas, they stress to us how this material body is not our real self, and that the perfection is to achieve the body deha, siddha deha, perfected spiritual body, which is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and fit to be an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the mood of our devotional service, or bhava, that is in our hands. Srila Prabhupada has taught us to cultivate right here and now. The material body will last as it is destined to. Prabhupada has given the example in pursuance of the instruction or example of Rupa Goswami of the mango and the unripe mango, or the ripe coconut inside the shell. It's more to the point, the ripe coconut. It's still within the shell, but if you shake it, you can see that it is detached. The essence of love of Godhead is emotion, bhava, the mood of loving devotional service. And we look for the symptoms in the devotee, and we can understand that their liberation is there and that they are situated in the spiritual world, even though seemingly amongst us in this world. The product of the Ladini Shakti is love of Godhead, which has two divisions, namely pure love of Godhead and adulterated love of Godhead. Only when the Ladini Shakti emanates from Sri Krishna and is bestowed upon the living being to attract him, does the living being become a pure lover of God. But when the same Ladini Shakti is adulterated by the external material energy and emanates from the living being, it does not attract Krishna. On the contrary, the living being becomes attracted by the glamour of the material energy. At that time, instead of becoming mad with love of Godhead, the living being becomes mad after material sense enjoyment, and because of his association with the qualitative modes of material nature, he is captivated by its interactions of distressful, unhappy feelings. So the opposite or the expansion, parallel but perverted reflection of the internal energy is the external energy. The internal energy is always inspiring the pure devotees. Word given is udipan, stimulation to ecstatic love, to engage in more and more devotional service. Srila Prabhupada translating in Vrindavan in his Antya-lila, just before departing this world, the 13th chapter of the 10th canto, when little Balagopal Krishna, to teach Lord Brahma an extraordinary lesson, showed how he had assumed the forms of all the cowherd boys and calves himself, and he transformed himself into unlimited four-handed Vishnu forms from each of the calves and cowherd boys. Astounding Lord Brahma. And it's described by Shukadeva Goswami that the glances of those Vishnu forms seem to protect the devotees from the modes of passion and ignorance, and quite to the advance or contrary, created ever new desires, the glances, to render ever new and variegated devotional service. And that's where Prabhupada wrote in his purport. Similarly, a devotee desired, let there be seva, let there be a temple. So what was once an empty corner has now become a great transcendental place of pilgrimage. Such are the desires of the pure devotee, under the protective glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The purest devotees of Srimati Radharani, her near assistants and confidential associates, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has described in his Siddhi Lalasa, 10 prayers of eager longing to go back home, back to Godhead, which appears in his Gita Mala, if I'm not mistaken, says, describing himself in his original Bhava Deha, Siddha Deha, that I will understand their inclination, their indications to me with glances and gestures. So we can understand this in terms of the first, second, and third class disciple. Third class or fourth class. First class will understand what the spiritual master wants, not only understand, but try to see what the spiritual master would want, and do without even, before being asked to do it. That's first class. Second class is the spiritual master asks you to do it, and you do it. Third class is the spiritual master asks you to do it, and you do it begrudgingly. And fourth class is the spiritual master asks you to do it, and you simply disobey and don't do it. So, The ultimate development is Mahabhav, topmost. She is the embodiment of Mahabhava. She is the repository of all good qualities. So cultivating the Sarubhushana, it's described in the, where is it? In Sanatana Shiksha or Rupa Goswami Shiksha, Lord Chaitanya's teaching, the 26 qualities of the pure devotee. There's also a place in Kapila Dev Shiksha in the 3rd canto in a purport where Prabhupada lists the 26 qualities, the ornaments of the saintly person, and the crest jewel among all the lovely consorts of Lord Krishna. The unadulterated action of the Ladini Shakti is displayed in the dealings of the damsels of Braja, and Srimati Radharani was the topmost participant in that transcendental group. The essence of the Ladini Shakti is love of Godhead, and the essence of love of Godhead is bhava, or transcendental sentiment, and the highest pitch of that bhava is called Mahabhava. Srimati Radharani is the personified embodiment of these 3 aspects of transcendental consciousness. She is therefore the highest principle in love of Godhead and is the supreme lovable object of Sri Krishna. When Krishna came disguised as a demigoddess to ascertain for his own great transcendental satisfaction in such a humorous, tricky method that he thought up, even Lalita Devi, whose appearance day was yesterday, was seemingly, quote-unquote, fooled for the time being. Why do you love such a person as this Sri Krishna? And she, Krishna, as the demigod, is listing all the so-called faults of Krishna. And Radharani goes on to explain, the book is called Prema Samputa, the love locket, the topmost revelation of the highest form of selfless love in the creation. That only very few transcendental damsels of Braja, they can actually demonstrate this topmost love in accord with each of their own unique individual feelings. Her mind, senses, and body are steeped in love of Krishna. She is Krishna's own energy, and she helps him in his pastimes. In the Madhya Lila chapter 8, Ramananda Roy's conversations with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what later became encapsulated in Raghunath Das Goswami's Davavali, Prema Mamboj Marandika. It's described the transcendental bodily features of Srimati Radharani and how they relate and are equated with natural phenomena, but are based on the highest form of spiritual perfection. This is very nice to actually understand the significance and supreme greatness of performing Abhishek for the deities. And not just, oh, these are nice substances or they're colorful, but there's very, very deep significance. Srimati Radharani is as fully spiritual as Krishna. No one can consider her to be material. She is definitely not like the conditioned souls who have mental bodies, gross and subtle, covered by material senses. She is all spiritual, and both her body and mind are of the same spiritual embodiment. Because her body is spiritual, her senses are also spiritual. Thus, her body, mind, and senses fully shine in love of Krishna. She is the personified Ladini Shakti, the pleasure-giving energy of the Lord's internal potency, and therefore she is the only source of enjoyment for Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna cannot enjoy anything that is internally different from him. Therefore, Radha and Sri Krishna are identical. The Sandhini portion of Sri Krishna's internal potency is manifested the all-attractive form of Sri Krishna, and the same internal potency in the Ladini feature has presented Srimati Radharani, who is the attraction for the all-attractive. No one can match Srimati Radharani in the transcendental pastimes of Krishna. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratipavita Bis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who resides in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, who resembles his own spiritual figure and who embodies the ecstatic potency, Ladini. Their companions are her confidants. Who embody extensions of her bodily form and were imbued and permeated with ever blissful spiritual rasa. Without many consorts, devotees, there is no such exaltation in rasa. Therefore, there are many manifestations of Srimati Radharani to assist in the Lord's pastimes. Among them are various groups of consorts in Braja who have varieties of sentiments and mellows. They help Lord Krishna taste all the sweetness of the rasa dance and other pastimes. As already explained, Krishna and Radha are one in two. They are identical. Krishna expands himself in multi-incarnations in plenary portions like the Purushas. Similarly, Srimati Radharani expands herself in multi-forms as the goddesses of fortune, the queens of Dwarka and damsels of Braja. You could add the Lakshmis of Vaikuntha. Such expansions from Srimati Radharani are all her plenary portions. All of these womanly, quote-unquote, forms of Krishna are expansions corresponding to his plenary expansions of Vishnu forms. These expansions have been compared to reflected forms of the original form. There is no difference between the original and reflected forms. The female reflections of Krishna's pleasure potency are as good as Krishna himself. The plenary expansions of Krishna's personality are called Vaibhava Vilas and Vaibhava Prakash, and Radha's expansions are similarly described. The goddesses of fortune are Vaibhava Vilas, and the queens are Vaibhava Prakash. The personal associates of Radharani, the damsels of Braja, are direct expansions of her body. As expansions of her personal form and transcendental disposition, they are agents of different reciprocations of love in the pastimes of Lord Krishna under the supreme direction of Srimati Radharani. In the transcendental realm, enjoyment is fully relished in variety. The exuberance of transcendental mellow is increased by the association of a large number of personalities similar to Radharani, who are also known as gopis or sakis. The variety of innumerable mistresses is a source of relish for Sri Krishna, and therefore these expansions from Srimati Radharani are necessary for enhancing the pleasure potency of Sri Krishna. So Prabhupada has taught us from the beginning and through and through and throughout this expansion of the pleasure potency is here for us to fully participate in, ultimately non-different mood than this exalted description that we are hearing. In the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radha and Krishna are one, but they have separated and become Radha and Krishna. Also in that love locket, we are one flame that has become two wicks. But when they again come together as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is why it's understood that the Chaitanya Charitamrita is even the postgraduate study to the graduate study of Srimad Bhagavatam. My dear Durvasa Muni, by acting against Maharaj Ambarish, you have acted in self-envy. One who creates such an offense, it's not who he's thinking that he's going to harm is going to be harmed, but he's harming himself. If you want any auspiciousness, you must go to the Maharaj Ambarish immediately, without a moment's delay. If he can be pacified and he forgives you, then and only then there will be peace for you. So Prabhupada writes in the purport in that section of the fourth chapter of the 9th canto that this Krishna consciousness movement is an attempt to expand the pleasure potency of the Lord more and more by creating, quote unquote, more and more devotees for the Lord's pleasure. Prabhupada wanted Tamal Krishna Maharaj to come back to India to be his GBC. So much headache Prabhupada had to personally deal with. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj was attached to the Radha Damodar party. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj knew during Prabhupada's, I think Shauri Prabhu in Prabhupada village is one of these persons I'm going to explain. Maybe this was in Chicago, I'm not exactly sure. That the Radha Damodar party had made a good number of brand new young men, shiny, clean brahmacharis, all saffron, shaved head. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj had come and had them come, each one come in and pay full dandavats and put a beautiful rose on Prabhupada's desk. And Prabhupada just started beaming and smiling. And the conclusion was, all right, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you can stay. Keep doing this. So one who is expanding the pleasure potency of the Lord is so dear to the Lord. Krishna himself says, there will be no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. Their transcendental exchanges of love are the super excellent affairs of the pastimes in Vrindavan. By these expansions of Srimati Radharani's personal body, she helps Lord Krishna taste the rasa dance and similar other activities. Srimati Radharani, being the central petal of the Rasa Leela flower, is also by the names found in the following verses, which we will look at some of them and conclude today's class. Govinda Nandini, Radha Govinda Mohini, Govinda Sarvasva, Sarvakanti Siromani. Radha is the one who gives pleasure to Govinda, and she also is the enchantress of Govinda. She is the be-all and end-all of Govinda and the crest jewel of all of his consorts. Devi Krishnamayi Prokta, Radhika Paradevata, Sarva Lakshmi Maya Sarva, Kanti San Mohini Para. The transcendental goddess Srimati Radharani is the direct counterpart of Lord Sri Krishna. She's the central figure of all the goddesses of fortune. She possesses all the attractiveness to attract the all-attractive personality of Godhead. She is the primeval internal potency of the Lord. This is to be found in the Brihad Gautamiya Tantra. Devi means resplendent and most beautiful, or else it means the lovely abode of the worship and love sports of Lord Krishna. Krishnamayi means one who's within and without our Lord Krishna. She sees Lord Krishna wherever she casts her glance. Or she is identical with Lord Krishna, for she embodies the mellows of love. The energy of Lord Krishna is identical with him. Her worship, Aradhana, consists of fulfilling the desires of Lord Krishna. Therefore, the Puranas call her Radhika. The name Radha is derived from the root word Aradhana, which means worship. The personality who excels all in worshiping Krishna may therefore be called Radhika, the greatest servitor. Therefore, Radha is Parama Devata, the supreme goddess, and she is worshipable for everyone. She is the protectress of all, and she is the mother of the entire universe. There's Lord Shiva's Radha Kripa Kataksha Stavaraj, spoken to by him to goddess Parvati, which is recorded in the Urdhvamanaya Tantra. Makeshvari, Kriyeshvari, Pramonakananeshvari, that she is the goddess of universal law. She is the goddess of forgiveness, the one and only authority who regulates our entrance into Sri Vrindavan Dham. Lord Shiva is begging for her mercy. Sarva Lakshmi indicates that she fully represents the six opulence of Krishna. Therefore, she is the supreme energy of Lord Krishna. Sarva Kanti indicates that her beauty and luster, all beauty and luster, rest in her body. All the Lakshmis derive their beauty from her. Kanti may also mean all the desires of Lord Krishna. All the desires of Lord Krishna rest in Srimati Radharani. So she is the source of devotional service for everyone, no matter what their mood, mellow or rasa may be. Srimati Radhika fulfills all the desires of Lord Krishna. This is the meaning of Sarvakanti. Lord Krishna enchants the world, but Sri Radha enchants even him. Therefore, she is the supreme goddess of all. Sri Radha is the full power, and Lord Krishna is the possessor of full power. The two are not different, as evidenced by the revealed scriptures. They are indeed the same, just as musk and its scent are inseparable, or as fire and heat are non-different. Thus, Radha and Lord Krishna are one, yet they have taken two forms to enjoy the mellows of pastimes. To promulgate prema bhakti, devotional service and love of Godhead, Krishna appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the mood and complexion of Sri Radha. Hare Krishna. So this is a very special day. It's a confidential day. Many people, and we see they understand the importance of Janmashtami, and even as a religious ritual. I believe today or tomorrow is Yom Kippur, the high holy day of the Jewish religion, which in New York City is a big deal. But the worship and understanding of the greatness of Srimati Radharani has been purposely kept secret and confidential because in this material world, the perverted reflection of the worship of Radha and Krishna, which is described in many places, particularly the fifth canto, Pumsastriya Maitunadi Hetam, attraction between the material forms, material bodies of material men and material women, they make up the basic principle of this material world. In the glorification at the end of Lord Chaitanya's teachings to Sanatana Goswami in particular is being glorified. that one of his greatness is that he renounced everything. He accepted the youthful goddess of renunciation. How can a beautiful goddess be renunciation? That doesn't seem to make sense. Bogaishvarya Pashaktanam Partha. In the minds of those who are too attached to material sense enjoyment and bewildered by such things, determination to perform devotional service does not take place. Quite to the contrary, Mahatmanas tumam partha daivim prakritim ashrita satatam kirtayanto mam vyavasyatmika buddha ekeha kurunandana. So she is the supreme emblem of devotional service. To enter into her association to perform direct devotional service to Radha and Krishna is the culmination and perfection of renunciation. Chapter 18, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. We can pray to the supreme empowered representative of Her Majesty Srimati Radharani, our beloved spiritual master, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, to perform devotional service very carefully and accurately under his guidance, knowing for certain, as Prabhupada wrote so many letters, and especially you could look at the letters Prabhupada wrote to his first disciples who helped him kickstart this movement, perform this preaching work, and be assured that in the end, you will go back home, back to Godhead, to directly associate with Krishna. Devotees in Los Angeles, I was just hearing Prabhupada's last visit there in 1976. One particular devotee had done some wonderful devotional service, and Prabhupada said that I bless him to go back home, back to Godhead at the end of this life. And then Prabhupada looked up at the whole assembly and the ladies up in the balcony of the Los Angeles temple, and Prabhupada made gestures, all of you, and just everyone just felt that Prabhupada was just like, that those words rang so profoundly true. So Srila Prabhupada is the representative of Srimati Radharani, the representative of Radha and Krishna, and specifically or particularly here, the representative of Shri Shri Radha Govinda. So this is a glorious day all around. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.